Hi there, and welcome to the Play Therapy Circle. Before we begin, please note this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It does not provide therapeutic advice, and listening does not create a client-therapist relationship. All views expressed are my own, and any case examples shared have been de-identified to protect privacy. If you're seeking personal support, please reach out to a qualified mental health professional in your area. Hi, and welcome to an episode of the Play Therapy Circle. I'm Kylie Ellison, a therapist, clinical supervisor, and play therapy trainer, and I'm so grateful you're here. This podcast is a space for thoughtful, soulful conversations about child-centered therapy, play-based work, and what it means to show up with presence and compassion, both for our clients and for ourselves. Whether you're a seasoned play therapist, a student just starting out, or someone deeply passionate about working with children, you belong here. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Play Therapy Circle podcast. I'm your host, Kylie Ellison, and I am so glad you are here. You guys, happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. I feel like I have to turn my mic down. Oh, there we go. Happy Thursday. It is 7:51 on Thursday morning, and I am recording this. Guys, this drops on Friday. This is bad. I don't really have an excuse either. I mean, I'm busy, but I don't really have an excuse. For any of you guys who are neurospicer, you will know we work best under pressure. Not that this is a good pressure. So I'm coming to you from our team room, I want to call it, where we have lunch and we catch up as a team, and it's just a little bit of a nice kind of space for us at Kylie Ellison Therapy and Training. So I really love it because I kind of updated it recently and it's got some kind of chill vibes. So I thought I would move the podcast here. So anyone watching, you will be able to see that. Anyone that's listening on Spotify or Apple, you're kind of at this point going, I can't see anything, so why are you describing it? That's fair. That's really fair. Normally, I'm recording in my playroom, obviously, or at my podcast space. So today, I'm just switching it up because that's also what we do when we need to spice things up. We move locations. So happy Thursday. It is really cold here in Brisbane. I know I'm fixated on weather, and I know you guys know that already, but it's so cold here in Brisbane, in Queensland, in Australia. So if you're coming from Brisbane, I see you, like it's freezing. Having said that though, I'm in like a t-shirt. So, again, Brisbane people, we're dramatic as well. We kind of say that it's cold, but kind of compared to others. That was just like a noise outside that I have no idea what that is. I am in downtown Capalaba in the Bayside area of Brisbane. If anyone knows, you know. We lock the doors. No, it's fine. It's just it's a busy area and something fell down outside my recording studio and I'm recording anyway, so I don't care. Okay, so I hope you guys are well. I hope you've had a great week. I've had a really great week. And I want to touch all of the wood when I say that because I don't want to jinx it because when you say that and then everything oftentimes falls apart. But I've had some really lovely feedback from varying sources, not just kind of one source, which has been really nice. So if you're ever feeling, I guess, a little bit like you're doubting yourself or you feel that imposter syndrome, because we all do. Guys, I'm 11 years into child-centered play therapy and I 100,000% have imposter syndrome pretty regularly, I want to say, every couple of days, if not every day. So you are not alone, and that's really important for you to hear. But when we get, and it's interesting, right? When we get that positive feedback, I don't know if this relates for anyone, but you almost want to discredit it. Not that you want to discredit it because the person saying it is wonderful, but you almost want to kind of go, no, that's not right because blah, blah, blah. So that's been a week for me. Maybe that's a little bit of personal growth, you guys. I don't know. But anyway, it's been really nice. We are on episode 50. Episode 50. What will that look like when we get to 100 or more? I have so many dreams for the podcast. This was something, as I said to you guys last week when we were celebrating our 1 year anniversary, whoa, which means actually, now that I calculate it in my head, I've literally done one almost every week. Wow, there you go. That's really cool. So I definitely have lots of dreams for next year for the podcast, but this year, as you guys might know, for anyone who is interested, we are having our podcast first conference ever. Like, I'm so excited, you guys. We are bringing our CCPT community together, and I can't wait. It's going to be great. So anyone who is passionate about CCPT, everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome. We are definitely setting things up in the back end for anyone who is international, who can't attend. We want to make sure that you guys can come along or have access to the recordings afterwards. So we will give you more information as that comes in. But we are technically, I think, just less than 3 months out from the conference. So it's so exciting, so exciting. So I have been obviously mulling over the content for the podcast, obviously reflecting on us achieving this 1 year milestone, and conscious of the fact, you guys, I'm going to be dramatic when I say this, it is the 1st of August on Saturday. 1st of August on Saturday. Have you started your Christmas shopping list? Have you started it? Do I have a countdown on my phone? Yes, I do. I think I've told you guys that. I am beyond excited. I decorate. Well, I didn't actually get a chance to do it last year. I was so busy. But I do love to decorate the office and have lots of Christmas vibes. For me, life starts at Halloween. I don't know if that's a thing for anyone else. I've just lost my view, actually. I was just trying to grab my coffee. For anyone who's watching on the YouTube, you're like, this is chaos. I'm grabbing my coffee as I'm talking. We always make a habit in our family of going shopping for decorations for Halloween. It's a big thing. It always has been in our family. And not for any particular reason, though, by the way. Like, yeah, it's just because we love dressing up and getting decorations out and whatever. But for me, it's always that you have Halloween, and that's like the 31st of October, and then it's just the slide to Christmas. So then, like, you know, Christmas tree comes out 1st of November. So yeah, I'm that person. So I have also been thinking about the fact that we have the rest of the year for the podcast. So I kind of wanted to have a bit of a structure, which is generally not my vibe, but I do want to actually make this helpful and useful for all of you. So what I would like to do is kind of map out our episodes for the next 6 months. And for anyone that's been listening for the last year, you know that's probably impossible, that I will probably go off on a tangent at some point. Just generally how it goes. But I will start to have a little bit of a structure to our episode content to kind of flow through all of the different topics that we cover over at Kylie Ellison Therapy and Training when I do our Workshop 1, Introduction to CCPT, and then also the clinical program. So I can give you a bit of a sense of the things that we cover over there. But all of those topics I'm really passionate about, so I thought, well, I may as well talk about them here as well. So the topic that I want to start with today, episode 15, this is so exciting, is I want to talk about the characteristics of a child-centered play therapist, because we've definitely covered over the last year what is child-centered play therapy and the history and the benefits. You guys know that really well. Also talking about the topic of play, which I'm very passionate about talking about in my intro to play therapy, because I think that that's very important. We're serving a community currently who is really struggling with access to free play and the decline of play. And so making sure that we have a good understanding of that is really important. So go back and listen to those episodes at the very start of this podcast if you need a refresher, because the rest of the series for the rest of the year is going to now tick off all of those topics that we cover, excuse me, over at CAT. So what I want to talk about today is characteristics of a play therapist. And this actually has been something that has come up in conversation in supervisions as well, because as you guys would have listened to the episode with Jody and I, that was a couple of episodes ago now, she was talking about how, essentially I'm paraphrasing, but how CCPT is a way of being. It's not just a series of kind of techniques, right? So it's a way of connecting with clients that is different to directive approaches. And so I'm really mindful of that. I'm just holding in mind lots of conversations over the last couple of weeks that I've had with different supervisees. I think, one of the things that maybe makes me a little bit different, I don't know, we're all different, right? In different ways, yay. Here comes the imposter syndrome, is that when I found child-centered play therapy, I remember feeling like it took the pressure off me a little bit. There was something that aligned with my values that I realized that it was the answer to what I was looking for in being able to really connect effectively with children. I think that was something that I had really grappled with and struggled with for many years in my government and non-government roles before I moved into CCPT. So I'd been working in the industry, I don't know, 10 or 15 years at that point. About 10 years. And so I really found it challenging when I was coming with activities and ideas and suggestions and strategies for children. It just didn't feel like it landed in the way that children needed us to communicate to them. And obviously, going down the rabbit hole of child-centered play therapy, it's been the answer to what I was looking for. But I think the difference for me, and I don't know if this relates for anyone too, but when I feel like I need to go into that directive space, it's usually because I'm doubting myself. I feel like the progress of the child is, in my view, not necessarily in theirs, but in my view, stagnant or not moving, or I feel that outside stakeholder pressure. And so, again, if I really take a macro view of my intervention of child-centered play therapy, that's not about the child. That's about other parts of the work that I'm doing. So it really became a discipline for me. And it still is, you guys. I'm still like, let's be really authentic and congruent and transparent here. We are all going to have those times where we feel like we just need to jump in with a couple of questions in a session with a child because we feel like that's what they need to move things. What is so apparent to me, just from so many different conversations with supervisees, is that children not only do they not need that, but there is something about the sacredness of the room that you provide when children get to come in and you get to hold that space for them and you get to hear their stories and you get to lessen the burden, as Virginia Axline talks about, that we never, I think, value enough or quantify enough. And I think that it becomes then, if I can put this sort of reflection out to our community, I do think, from my perspective, I think it then becomes about us as practitioners being able to adapt, I guess, the information of what we are presented with in the playroom and the work that we're doing to essentially, I guess, fill that kind of gap or that question or that content request that's coming from external providers. Because I think as soon as we can, and that is something that I have developed over the last 11 years, where I feel very confident now that if I go into a playroom, I can do that play therapy work and I can come out and, I don't know what the word is, it's not filter, but it's, I guess, quantify, or I can digest it, or I can, filter is probably a better word, into the information whilst very much still protecting the confidentiality of the child. That is my number one priority. So I'm not going to talk about the play and any of that direct information that the child gives me. But I am very much going to summarize the information in a way that other stakeholders can hear, so that I can meet that need while still being able to do the work that I do. Because again, this comes back to my original reflection here in this conversation around the fact that I want to protect the sacredness of what happens in the playroom and the work that I do with the child. So that requires us, here I'm like unpacking this in real time, you guys, and I've only had like half a coffee. That actually requires us to hold some boundaries. I don't want to discount the fact that for many of our community, you are working in roles and in spaces where there is a pressure. There is a funding pressure, there's an expectation pressure, there's a questioning of the validity of your work pressure. There's so many different ways that this shows up. So I 1000% see you. But I think it's also about being able to hold the space in a way where we can hold those boundaries for the child, but then also meet those requirements of our job. So I always believe, and maybe this is my glass half full kind of mentality in life, I always believe that there's a way forward with that. It's just about navigating it in a way that we can find that language of what is needed so that we can continue to do the work that we do in the playroom. So this episode today, I've gone off on a tangent, it's already 13 minutes in, and that was not the intention. Here we are. What I want to do is have a little bit of a conversation with you guys around what kind of person becomes a play therapist and what kind of person does the work invite us to become. Whoa. Deep stuff, you guys. Deep stuff. Let's get into it. Let's do it. So when we're talking about child-centered play therapy, and I'm really conscious of the fact that I hold different hats, right? So I do supervision, I do training, I see clients, I present at conferences, and now I'm talking to all of you as a podcaster. So I certainly acknowledge the different and varied approaches that obviously come with us being CCPT practitioners and where that takes us. But most professions, I guess, to kind of caveat this or I guess set the scene, most professions are technique-based and to some extent child-centered play therapy as well. So what I'm talking about is that you usually measure competency by what somebody knows and how they do it and what they do. Right? So here's the challenge, I guess, for us, that child-centered play therapy in some respects is fundamentally different. So it's very difficult for you to separate the practice from the practitioner. We actually need both, which was kind of the start of the conversation that we were having today. It's this idea of, child-centered play therapy is at the heart of what we do, and it's the heart of who we are. And so it's almost kind of this embracing of these values and techniques, as we say, to be able to deepen our work and to be even more effective in our work. So the relationship, when we connect with children, is the intervention. It's not just, have I ticked off on tracking, reflecting feelings, limit setting, and making meaning. That's not what, it is what it is, certainly when we learn about the techniques of child-centered play therapy. But what I want to challenge all of you guys listening is that it's not the only part. And if you are just focusing on those skills, you are missing that whole other part of child-centered play therapy that is so critical to the work that we do. We always talk about, as anyone who's been listening to the podcast for a while knows, it's about the relationship first and foremost. That's why we have the warm-up stage. It's why we spend so long connecting and building a relationship, a working alliance with the child, because you can't do therapy from our perspective in CCPT. You can't do therapy without it. So the relationship is the intervention. It requires us as practitioners to be so vulnerable and connected and congruent and present that it's just not just the techniques. So empathy is the treatment here. When we look at it, congruence, empathy, and unconditional positive regard is the intervention, is the treatment. So it's not just techniques, it's a way of being, as Rogers would say. So Landreth talks about, right, being with the child is more important than doing something to the child. Let me say that again. Being with the child is more important than doing something to the child. Whew. Which really, I guess, then kind of questions or puts us in that critical space to reflect around that non-directive versus directive way of engaging with children. So what I want to talk about here is that you can learn that technique of tracking, but it is empty and doesn't work if there's no genuine warmth, if there's no genuine acceptance, if there's no empathy and unconditional positive regard. You can't do the techniques without bringing your whole self and focusing on the relationship in the playroom as well. So the reflection is hollow if there's no attunement. You can't reflect feelings if you're not attuned at the same time. So it really is that I want to reframe this idea around giving yourself permission to really go deeper in your work. That's really important. And if you are just focused on the techniques and you feel like maybe there isn't a lot of progress happening for the child, obviously there's different ways, and we're going to talk about that in this episode. There's different ways to deepen that and to work on that. But I give you that food for thought around it, not just focusing on the techniques, but actually the whole picture here of what we're trying to do in the playroom. So what are some of those characteristics in particular that are super important for us as child-centered play therapists to have? So we've talked about those tenets of CCPT, right? Empathy, congruence, and unconditional positive regard, and the relationship. But let's talk about the characteristics of us. So genuine warmth. Okay, so it's not performative. It can't be. It has to be genuine because children will pick up on that. Like, children are fantastic in that space. And what I've really, and I really want to do an episode, we will get to it, guys, because I promise we're going to go through all of the content and all of the things in the next couple of months. But I really want to do a podcast on those of us who are neurodivergent, who are then in the playroom working with children, because there is something about having children be able to connect with us or us be able to connect with them in a way that just makes sense. It doesn't need deep analysis. Children don't come with these layers and layers. They definitely come with oftentimes extremely kind of traumatic and extensive trauma backgrounds, say, or extensive disabilities and diagnoses. I don't want to take away from that. But the fantastic thing about children is they show up as themselves, and it's our job to go, I see you. Like, that makes sense to me. So for me, later in my career now, obviously being late diagnosed myself, I feel like it's really helpful for me. I see it as a great superpower for me to go, that makes sense. That makes sense to me because I get it. Like, you don't have to unravel this. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to unpack it because I see you. And that comes from that genuineness of ourselves, but it also comes with that genuine warmth of wanting to be with children and just hear their stories. So it's our ability to hold someone as inherently worthy of care. Whoa. Not because they earned it, not because they behaved, but just because they're here. Children get it. They pick up on that genuineness, truly, within the first couple of minutes of meeting you. And they will pick up on if you are performative, because they've got obviously parts of themselves, including their nervous system, that will pick up on whether you are safe or not. And so it's something to consider and reflect on in your practice. Do you find yourself genuinely delighted when you're with children? Is the question I want to kind of put to you. Because even those challenging ones, and I always say, you guys, the challenging ones are the best ones. The ones where we don't necessarily connect first, I welcome that because I'm like, right, this is something about myself that I'm going to learn something about. It's not necessarily the priority being me, but I'm going to definitely learn something about myself that's going to help me be a more, deeper, effective practitioner in this space because I've extended myself and built on my skills further. I'm always saying that I am a constant learner. I don't ever think that I have reached that sense of mastery as a child-centered play therapist. And so whenever you have those challenges in that space, embrace that because that's an opportunity for you to learn more about yourself. Obviously then reflecting that in supervision and personal therapy outside of the playroom, but it is an incredible gift and a privilege to be able to do that. Okay, characteristic number 2, self-awareness, which kind of builds off what I was just saying, right? Knowing what is yours versus what belongs to the child. Yikes, there's so many truths before 9 a.m, you guys. Noticing your own triggers. This is really important. Your own history, your own countertransference. I am a big believer in countertransference as being incredibly helpful for us in the space of understanding the perspective of the child, helping us to do those deeper making meaning reflections, and helping children to heal from their issues and their challenges. So I'm a big believer in that. But I also think that the best way, I guess, to reflect on that and to make sense of that is not in the moment in the playroom, but it's certainly more in that regular supervision and that space where you are held and supported outside of the playroom to make sense of it so you can show up as the best version of yourself in the playroom. Landreth always says, the therapist's greatest tool is themselves, and self-knowledge is what keeps that tool clean. Ooh, I like that. So it's this idea of our self-awareness, and it really is, guys, because I think that what I see often with beginning play therapists, and some seasoned ones as well, is when we start to feel really frustrated by children, when we start to feel, not necessarily in the moment, but just in talking and supervision, if the therapist feels like they don't necessarily feel like progress is happening, they feel like the child is stuck, they're starting to kind of feel a little bit exhausted by the idea of seeing, Johnny at 3:00 on a Tuesday, that often tells me that the therapist is struggling maybe potentially with compassion fatigue, burnout, exhaustion, overscheduling, all of those things, as opposed to what's happening in the playroom. So my immediate response is to, in supervision, unpack that, because I know that the people doing this work genuinely want to do it because they're passionate about working with children, hearing children's stories. So it's not about the child. It's often that there's just a need for that play therapist to get more support, rejig their schedule, look after themselves so that then they can show up in the playroom. So that deep self-awareness is important. Tolerance for not knowing, you guys. That is what CCPT is all about. We have to sit in the uncertainty and we have to be okay with that. We actually have to be okay with that. Even when it feels like Groundhog Day. That again invites us as CCPT practitioners to do our own reflections outside of the playroom and to deepen our understanding and knowledge of what the child is showing us in the playroom, because they're always showing us. It's just our job to understand that. So we have to be able to sit in the uncomfortable, sit in the uncertainty, and be okay with that. That we don't always have to make sense of things. We don't always have to interpret things. We don't have to control the outcomes. This all has to be quietened. We have to actually take care of ourselves outside so that that isn't something that comes in and filters into the playroom. It can be one of the hardest characteristics to develop, by the way, because really at the core, and I think it's about patience, but it's truly, I guess, resigning is the wrong word, but it really is giving over to the approach to say, I trust this. I trust this. And I do feel like 11 years in, I can do that because I've worked with so many kids up to this point that have shown me that progress and that journey that tells me that this is always, when I'm with a child who is struggling, that it's just their season. It's just a season in their work. It's not going to be the same in 10, 15 sessions time. That it is so important for me to trust the process. And really what I'm talking about here, guys, I'm having like a light bulb moment in real time, is I'm giving that control over to the child in terms of the agenda and the, how do I put this? Like the timeline of those sessions as well. I'm giving it over to the child because I know they will tell me in their way what is their struggle and their issues, and they will know how many sessions they need. We really have to get back to that basic of believing in the child and believing in their process and believing they will move through when they are ready. Similar, to what happens to us in adult therapy when we are trying to work through issues and problems. We know how long we need until we're starting to feel better. It's the same for kids. So characteristic number 4, I don't know if I've been numbering these, but here we go. Genuine humility. The child is the expert of themselves. They are the expert on themselves and of themselves. We are not there to fix them, teach them, or make them different. Every child who sits with us is our teacher too. Oh, this is gold, you guys. If you cannot receive that, you can't do this work. I don't want to say that. I think it's really about hearing that and embracing that as a practitioner. So every child is the expert of themselves. We're not here to fix them or teach them. And every child who sits with us and connects with us in the playroom is our teacher as well. Right? So it really changes how we view our role and what that looks like. And again, going back to my original conversation at the start of this episode, that's also our responsibility then to be able to filter that information to help meet those expectations outside of the playroom. Truly 11 years in, that is never my concern. I've worked in spaces in child protection, in education, in the NDIS, in lots of different spaces where they have very clear outcomes of what they are expecting us to do. We can always provide that evidence because of course we're providing an intervention. It's just in the language that we use so that we can protect this space, because humility for us is not a lack of confidence. It's confidence that does not require the child to prove their value. Whoa, you guys. I am so interested to hear people's reflections. Please comment on our socials, on our episode, listing here on on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, because I'd love to hear your thoughts or connect with us. Humility is not a lack of confidence as a play therapist. It is confidence that does not require the child to prove their value, because we believe that they are our teachers. So we don't have to teach them. They're going to teach us, and we're going to provide that space to facilitate that growth and connection for them to be able to move towards those resolutions that they need. It really flips on its head, those traditional ideas of intervention, guys. Characteristic 5, capacity for stillness. In a world that moves fast, because we are living in a world right now that is overscheduled and overburdened. It demands that our intervention measures productivity, because that's what we're dealing with. And us as CCPT practitioners have to hold that space for stillness instead, because in a world that is crazy busy, that constantly has those goals and expectations for therapy intervention, we need to be still in our body, still in our mind, and be present as child-centered play therapists in the playroom. This is deeply cultural. Sorry, I wrote this down and now I can't say it. Countercultural. So many of us struggle with silence in the non-doing. And I know there's many of you out there listening right now that feel this. The sense that they should be doing more. The stillness, guys, this is my message to anyone listening right now. I hope this lands. The stillness is not passivity. You are not being passive, non-productive. We are going against culture here, countercultural here. You're not being passive. It's actually active receptivity. And the child will feel it immediately. You are literally the antidote to our culture at the moment. When you sit in the playroom and provide that space for children to regulate their nervous systems, to be able to widen their window of tolerance, to be able to connect with someone that doesn't have an agenda or expectations or goals for them, you're really the antithesis of a lot of the things that children are experiencing in lots of other spaces outside of the playroom. So never ever doubt how important and sacred that is for children. That truly is the message that I have started to give to some of my supervisees, but has been consistently in my work, especially for the last couple of weeks, where practitioners are really feeling that pressure. And I want to give you guys that alternative view of why what you're doing is absolutely essential. It's absolutely essential right now for our kids. So how do you continue to work on your characteristics of you as a therapist, as a play therapist? So your own therapy. We've talked a little bit about this, but your own self-awareness, it's not optional. It is so important. Actually, I take that back. I would never force any practitioner to go into therapy when they're not ready. I think therapy for practitioners is a deeply personal experience, and it is absolutely something that every individual practitioner is on their individual journey for. I have absolutely no issue with being transparent to say that I think having a therapist, and I have an incredible psychologist that I check in with, who is somebody that supports me in the work that I do because I want to be the best version of myself in the playroom. So having your own therapy, I think, is so helpful, you guys. But it should be something that each individual practitioner decides. But it is absolutely something that will come up over the course of your work that requires that you need to take care of yourself as well. So your own therapy is where your triggers can be unpacked, where your history can be worked through, where you can develop your own self-awareness to be the best version of yourself and to help, I guess, kind of meet those demands of what you're seeing in the playroom. So I think that it's something, for you guys to consider. Pathway number 2 is real ongoing supervision. So supervision that goes beyond that sort of management of, the nuts and bolts of the work that you do. But I think what's really important is that our tenants of CCPT as supervisors should also live in the supervision space. And I know Jodie Mullen, my supervisor, feels this too. So I'm not talking out of turn saying that, but supervision is very much around holding you, not just your caseload, not just your sessions or your techniques. If we are talking about a deeply personal experience in the playroom where we are very much connecting at a human level with a child, we absolutely have to do that in our supervisions as well to help us grow and learn too. So regular supervision with someone who understands child-centered play therapy and can hold your growth and help you with those blind spots, help you to give that objective kind of third-party view is absolutely essential. You can't do it without it. Pathway 3, deliberate practice of stillness and presence outside of the playroom, whether that's, journaling, mindfulness, walking, whatever that looks like. I have tried starting to walk this week, you guys, but the demands of life and work and all of the things mean that it's something that I am definitely struggling with this week to keep as a priority. So it's a work in progress, everyone. It's a work in progress. But what do you have that helps to foster your stillness? So you, as the child-centered play therapist practitioner, it's so important that when you go into a playroom that you feel regulated yourself. and that you are able to help support children who are dysregulated, who are presenting with, intensive behaviors in the playroom, that we can hold that space for children. So we can't do that if we are dysregulated too, right? So it's definitely for your professional ongoing practice to be able to do that as well. Community with your other CCPT practitioners, connecting with other practitioners who do the same work as you, whether that's group supervision, peer consultations, community groups. Connect with others in this space to help foster that personhood of growth for you as well. But the most important thing that everyone needs to hear is give yourself time and grace. Give yourself time and grace. You will not have all of those characteristics equally ever. That's not the goal. That's not the goal. To have all of those characteristics, to be all of those things, to have all of the tenets of CCPT nailed in the playroom. We are not like that as human beings. We are always showing up as the best version we can in the playroom, but we're always evolving and growing. So it's an ongoing process. There's not this kind of achievement, tick of the competencies tag, right? It is very much making sure that we are showing that commitment. So a play therapist 5 years in has grown so much, 10 years more, 20 years more, you're still growing. That's the incredible thing about this work. That's the incredible thing. So I hope that this message has landed for anyone who needed it this week, because I'm just really mindful of the fact that this has been so much part of the conversations of the work that I have been doing. So I hope it resonates for you. As I promised, I will keep doing these episodes now as we unpack the different aspects of the work that we cover over in our training program. So for anyone who is interested in learning more, we will put the details in the show notes of ways for you to connect. If you're interested in doing Introduction to Child-Centered Play Therapy, if you are ready to start your play therapy journey, or if you'd like to connect with our play therapy, our CCPT community forum page, it's free to join. So we'll put the links in the show notes as well. So you can do some of those things that I just talked about around connecting with your peers in this community, which is so important to you. My message, though, more than anything else, is that you guys are incredible and the work that you do matters. And I'm genuinely so proud of our community and everyone who is showing up as child-centered play therapists each and every day in the playroom, because this work is not easy. It's not easy, but your work matters. Your work matters. Next week, we're going to talk about the playroom, what belongs there, what doesn't belong there, and why this space matters as much as the person. So this is going to be great. We're going to dive into these different elements of child-centered play therapy. So if you're seasoned or if you are beginning, hopefully it's helpful for all of you as well. Thank you so much for your support. Look after yourselves and each other, and I will see you again soon. Happy Thursday. Bye. Thank you so much for being here for another episode of the Play Therapy Circle. If anything resonated with you today, I'd love it if you could follow the podcast, share it with a colleague, or leave a short review. It really helps others find our circle. And if you have a topic or question you'd love me to explore, I'd love to hear from you. This space is for you, and I want it to feel like a conversation. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, you belong here.